Good evening. My name is Frederick Dean. I'm one of the elders at the Highbury Park Church of Christ. We want to welcome you to Pathway to a Healthier You. Pathway to a Healthier You is a health and wellness ministry of the Highbury Park Church of Christ. And tonight we are delighted to have Dr. Cyprian Strachan with us. More will be said about Dr. Strachan shortly. My job is just to get us started with a word of prayer. And so I want you to bow with me as we pray. Eternal Father, we are grateful for this opportunity to assemble on this platform. Father, to be educated on things that we can do to improve our health and to boost our immune system. Father, we are grateful for Dr. Strachan, who has graciously consented to be with us. Father, we pray that you just be with all that we will do this evening. And that at the end of the day, Father, that we would have been edified to the point where we know now we would know what to do to better take care of the temple that you have blessed us with. Father, we ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus, our Lord and our Savior. In Christ's name we do pray. Amen. Dr. Curry.
All right, thank you, Brother Frederick. Good night, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Pathway to a Healthier You. Tonight, as Brother Frederick mentioned, we have with us Dr. Cyprian Strachan. Dr. Cyprian Strachan, or Sip to his friends, will first describe himself as a devoted husband to his wife, Ashaki, and father to his children, Saishik, Harlian, and Malik, an avid Junkanoo and a proud member of the Roots Junkanoo group Backline. Before attending the Utah Medical School in 1989, he worked for the Ministry of Agriculture and proudly proclaims his success as a pepper, key lime, and sugar apple farmer. All through high school, he was known by the nickname Doc. At the age of 5, he made up his mind to become a medical doctor. In high school, he thought of specializing in psychiatry came to his mind. He ultimately decided on primary medicine because he felt that he could have a wider cross-section of patients, but still practice psychiatry. He established his practice, Javon Medical Center, in 1996 in Nassau and Javon Medical Clinic in Bimini in 2015 to assist the people of the community where he attended primary school. While intent on practicing evidence-based medicine, Dr. Strachan challenged himself to study disease paths with a view of helping those afflicted with chronic lifestyles and behavioral diseases. Even though medication helped with illnesses such as diabetes and hypertension, there were so many whose health seemed on a downward spiral. A pattern arose that showed soil deficiencies and nutrient imbalances were causing effects in the glandular secretions of citizens of all ages, resulting in our disease profile. His new style of management includes dietary changes, intensive vitamin, mineral, and amino acid supplementation, which has led to the reversal of several significant illnesses in large numbers of patients, helping to decrease and alleviate the disease burden in the country. In addition to diabetes and high blood pressure, he's had great success with other chronic diseases like asthma, sinus, migraine, seizures, SLE, Alzheimer's, and a positive outcome in almost every disease. It was also at Javon Medical Center where he noted a high incidence of illness in women before, during, and after pregnancy. After years of observation and numerous case studies, he developed his own special formula of prenatal vitamins called Nugesta, designed specifically for the Bahamian female population. It was officially launched during the Bahamas Pharmaceutical Association Continuing Education Program in Bimini on March 19, 2016. His professional associations include past president of the Medical Association of the Bahamas, past council member of the Bahamas Medical Council, NIB Appeals Boards until 2016, Blue Ribbon Commission on Violence Against Women, Blue Ribbon Commission on NHI, member of the Bahamas Healthy Lifestyle Secretariat, and member of the Bahamas Anti-Bullying Campaign. Dreams of being a professional basketball player after growing to 6 feet plus at the age of 16 caused an intense love of competitive sports. Being a thinner, weaker athlete ensured a love of weightlifting and bodybuilding to cause an improved success of his chosen sport. Relationships with bodybuilders grew over the years and led Dr. Strachan to being a member of the local executive of bodybuilding and even being relegated to the board of the bodybuilding executive of the entire Caribbean to this date. He's transferred his passion for sport and culture to children who are active in sports and Junkanoo. His membership includes traveling sports doctor for track and field since 1994 and volunteer weekend assistance for track and field meets from 1994 to present, council member, BAAs, with responsibility of medical management of track and field, local weekend meets, and traveling teams since 1999. He also provides free office visits at Javon Medical Center for nutritional consultation and injury rehabilitation of all young athletes of all sports disciplines for the past 15 years. The IAAF Relays medical team manager from 2014 and 2015, former junior baseball coach and junior boys assistant basketball coach for Sinan's 2016 to 2017 season. He is involved in social outreach programs such as I Am Smart, Anti-Pregnancy Association, where he's the vice president, and the vice president of Caraman Association. He's also an advisor for the Bahamas Association of Social Health from 1997 and director of the Bahamas Family Planning Association until present. His current medical practice is at Javon Medical Center, where patients come in on 2 or 3 medications and still under control for diabetes, heart failure, hypertension, asthma, and other chronic diseases. Having struggled with his weight as a young child, Dr. Strachan emphasizes with the overweight community, and the signature feature of his clinic is weight management. Sorry. Dr. Strachan feels that easy access to the physician is important, so all patients are given his cell phone number and home number for additional peace of mind. He has also welcomed young doctors for the past 18 years to hone their skills and gain confidence after graduating from medical school while waiting to pass their exams. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Cyprian Strachan to Pathway to a Healthier You.
Thank you very much for that introduction, ma'am. I did not expect that introduction. I don't know where, I think I know where you got it from, but I didn't quite expect that, but that's okay. So I'm a general practice physician. This is my 29th year out of medical school. As was said earlier, I actually wanted to be a psychiatrist, but I realized that the Bahamian population wasn't, in my mind, prepared for psychiatry. But I felt that I was a general practice physician, they would come in and we'd still get to talk about their lifestyles and their families. And I felt like brain health, mental health was the most important thing. And the opportunity to sit and talk with them is to me a significant positive. My hairstyle has changed since COVID. I don't know if anybody noticed that there's a difference between the picture that was on the screen. I didn't believe in vitamins and minerals to begin with. Me and my friends would crack jokes that vitamins and minerals didn't change your health. And that if a patient came in, you just say something silly, like, oh, just take some Flintstones, or anything will do, because I didn't think it made a difference. Over the years, I got into conversations with people like Dr. Norman Gang. One day, Dr. Diggis walked into my office and said, I know you know nutrition, but maybe you should get a certificate to put on the wall so that it reinforces that you know what you're talking about. And I started on a weight management certificate. And I ran into some research that blew my mind, that I thought couldn't be possible. And so every time they said something, I would Google it to double check to see if this was real, or these people, you know, you had your set of books that you had to go through. I was wondering if people were making up stuff. And so the first item I may have Googled was selenium. And I had a bottle of selenium sitting on my kitchen counter right here. And I read the international research on selenium. And New Zealand had research. Great Britain had research. China had research. And so these mature countries had research documents that you could just Google. And so the first element that I really studied was selenium. I have a background in agriculture. I lived in Andros for 2 years. I lived at Bark. Bark was Bartard. Bark is now Bamsey. And in order for the cows to survive on the open 500-acre plot, the people came down from Alabama to examine our soil. And what they found was that our soil would not promote good cow health. The cows would get premature rupture of membranes where the afterbirth would burst prematurely. The placenta, the afterbirth again, would get stuck. They would get heart failure. They would get stiff muscle disease. They would get all of these different illnesses because of our soil. But they only knew this because it was happening in Alabama and around the US country. And there are geological studies that show you the level of selenium county by county throughout the US. So they had taken a soil sample and they said, you know, after 0.5, you get illness. It's just a random number. But ours was 0.42. I commissioned a study to check our soil. And what happens in cows happens in humans. And so there would be women who had premature rupture of their membranes or placenta that got stuck. There were different illnesses, heart failure, heart disease. And when I was a junior doctor, when that happened to women, they were simply told that, you know, that's God's design and we don't really have a good explanation for it. And so I just said what my seniors were saying. But this is what I found out eventually. We are biochemical. We are biochemical machines. God didn't create us and leave us stranded. We were designed in such a way that our systems are run by glands, right? The other animals have the instincts to know what they should eat. Human beings are gotten too smart and have lost their instincts. But while I was on the farm in Andros, there were salt blocks that we'd have to distribute. We just pushed them off the back of the truck and the cows would come over. You wouldn't have to say, hey cow, come over here. They naturally got attracted to the scent or the smell and knew that that was something that they needed to lick. It's called a salt lick, I guess. And they would bring their little calves. So we are biochemical machines. When we were created, there was no pharmacy. There was no drugstore. There was no pharmacist. There was no doctor. And we should have had the instincts to know what to eat and how to eat. We are machines that are run by a system of glands. We don't run ourselves. We sometimes get confused and believe that we run ourselves, but we don't run ourselves. The glands talk to each other. So the dominant gland is the thyroid gland in the neck, and it uses iodine to make a chemical. So back over 100 years ago, in the early 1900s, we're in the 2100s now, early 1900s, they realized that women were having children that were different degrees of, they were born, some were a little slower. Part of the way they found it out was they had them doing the test to be able to go into the war. And they would look normal, but they couldn't pass an exam. The next problem was recurrent miscarriages. Nobody had a good scientific reason. The next level was somebody who was obviously retarded and deformed, excuse me, and that's how they got the word cretin. We use the word cretin casually, but if you Google the word cretin, cretin is a person who is short, stumpy, retarded, and deformed. This was basically one of our first pandemics. We use the word pandemic now a lot. But what happens is a mother's thyroid has to make the baby. The thyroid gland is the most dominant gland for a child to develop. Thyroid gland for the child does not kick in, and depending on the study, between 18 weeks or 24 weeks, right? So the mother's thyroid has to make the child. A thyroid gland needs iodine to make a child. All animals, horse, dog, sheep, cat, monkey, bird, use a thyroid gland that depends on iodine. So the research started in Michigan, but it was happening in Europe. It was happening in central regions of Africa, of China, of New Zealand, where there were these children who were slower and who were deformed because their mothers couldn't make them properly without iodine and without her thyroid working for the first couple months until the baby's thyroid took over. So in their infinite wisdom, they put iodine in the salt, and that was cheaper than buying them a piece of fish. It worked well for certain communities, but the problem was if you have exposure to sea breeze and seafood, you don't need iodized salt. You actually suck iodine through your nostrils and through your skin if you live on the coast or if you're an island community. So iodized salt was pushed and pushed and pushed, and the central regions got better, they got healthier, and the people on the coast now started to get miscarriages, hypertension, diabetes, and thyroid disease within 2 years of the introduction of iodized salt. Not every country went back to research it to see, well, what's the benefit of the iodine? China did some studies, another country did some studies, and what they found was the central populations, the people who live in the mountains or in the valley between the mountains, they did remarkably well, but the coastal people got sick. And what they tried to do is decrease the amount of iodine in the salt once or twice until they finally gave up and said, you know, it ain't no iodized salt for you. The problem is we use iodized salt. There's a limit to how much iodine each of us could tolerate. Iodized salt was not designed for Bahamians and should not be sold in the Bahamas so that people don't miss and pick it up. The mics are closed, but I am curious to know how many people on the chat right now use iodized salt. Because I grew up on iodized salt. And I checked on a variety of households and stores, shops. And a lot of the local restaurants are using iodized salt. The international restaurants are using iodized salt. We actually went around and asked people, go check who you eat from, go check to see what they season with. And so all the fast food places use iodized salt. The problem with iodized salt is that at a certain point, your thyroid gland will shut down to protect itself. When you make thyroid hormone, you also make hydrogen peroxide. The hydrogen peroxide could come back to irritate the thyroid gland, and so the thyroid gland does its best to then shut down the production of thyroid hormone, right? Because the damage causes the body to then attack the thyroid gland. And this is the foundation of what we call autoimmune disease. Things like lupus and Crohn's disease, and I don't know, it's a long list. Now, truth be told, I became allergic to seafood at around the age of 9 or 10. And I didn't realize that that was a signal that I had had too much iodine. I don't know how many people are allergic to seafood or shellfish. Again, the mics are not open, so people can't answer me on that question. But in nature, the glands run the body. The thyroid gland is the dominant gland. Your adrenal gland, sorry. Your adrenal gland, your ovaries, your testicles, all of your glands are sitting and waiting for direction from your thyroid gland. Too much iodine, it could speed up your thyroid or it can slow it down. We actually don't have a scientific, we don't know what will happen to who. We just know it will happen. And so what it turns out is that in nature, God understood that this could possibly happen. And selenium was the antidote. So a number of countries went around researching the levels of selenium in their soil and in their foods, but we weren't a mature enough company. New Zealand sent out a newsletter. Great Britain, I saw something on the British Medical Council where this nutritionist, they were getting wheat from Canada and then switched to get wheat from France and Germany. And this researcher, this nutritionist, watched heart disease, miscarriage, and general illness increase. This was back in 1997 when she put in her observations in the British Medical Council newsletter. So what we describe as illness is just an imbalance in vitamins and minerals so that the glands can't work to their what's the word I want? Their optimal point. Around in the 1920s, when iodine went into salt, the drug companies started to get stronger. And instead of us going back and saying, well, iodine salt is causing the problem, let's find a solution for that. The drug companies came along, and so there was a drug for everything. So once somebody gets sick, they start their drugs. And because their bodies never get balanced again, then they go from one drug to the next drug and it keeps adding up. Right? Y'all still with me? Anybody awake out there?
Yes, sir. We here.
Okay. So the glands run the body. Selenium deficiency is the new pandemic. We are overwhelmed with iodine, and everybody reaches their point at different ages. Like I say, I hit the wall at age 10. And the amount of illnesses that I suffered from, I can't quite explain to anybody. I had asthma, I had eczema, I got fungal infections that I couldn't explain, couldn't control, because once the body goes off balance, right? The adrenal gland, this is God's nature, is supposed to pick up the slack for a certain amount of time, and hopefully the thyroid gland would catch back. So the adrenal gland is picking up, and the adrenal gland gets overstimulated. And what you end up with now is some hormones that block the absorption of magnesium and serotonin. So you'll have a normal person, they're doing well, they don't have any illnesses. Excuse me. They may have a genetic profile for certain illnesses, but having a genetic profile doesn't mean that you have to get the illnesses. The problem is the next thing that happens is you stop absorbing magnesium. And that's when the sickness kicks in. Magnesium was, to my understanding, God's great absorber. And what we ended up with was people, it's not what you ate after a certain point, is what you could absorb, right? So people got sick. Okay, asthma is a magnesium deficiency disorder. If you don't have sufficient magnesium, the mucus in your lungs gets thicker, right? The tissues get more reactive. They respond to stimuli in the environment differently. As a doctor, we were trained to give people prednisone. It turns out that magnesium behaves like prednisone, but that wasn't in the textbook. You had to search and fumble and find it out. And so the first person I was treating was myself and my children, asthmatics, hypertensive, sinus, back spasms, neck spasms. I was on 2 antihypertensive medications, but every other sickness, you could calm a lot of things down with giving magnesium. And you had to balance out the diet where you take away dairy and nuts because they competed with the magnesium. It's not what you eat, it's what you can absorb. And so I had to learn for myself. And once I understood it, then I went back to my office and I said, okay, patients, we can start something new. Because the patients would come to you and they'd say, well, I wasn't born a hypertensive. I have to take this medicine for the rest of your life. And I would say, yes, it's just bad luck. Something went wrong. Don't understand what went wrong, but just take your medicine. Until it happened to me. And I said, but I'm a doctor. How is it that I have hypertension? That's not right. I used to be an athlete. I used to be active. What went wrong? And after discussion and debate, I spoke to nutritionists. I spoke to, we had a endocrinologist named Dr. Peter. He left now about 7 to 10 years. And me and him would have polite arguments because I would ask him, I said, why does it look like we don't get enough seafood? And he said, I understand what you're trying to say, but that's not the answer, but I can't tell you what's wrong. And that's when I ran into this mineral selenium. And we had to find a way to figure out who was selenium deficient. The test for selenium didn't help us. People who have keloid skin, that was a sign. People who are allergic to seafood, that was a sign. People whose eyes were oversized. And the interesting thing is that I had keloids. My family bragged about the size of our eyes and said that that's the big, beautiful, strong eye. And I had to say, no, that's an eye of sickness. The top of the pupil, the top lid and the bottom lid should touch the pupil. Are you saying that right? The iris or the pupil? The irising. The dark circle in the center of the eye. The two eyes, the eyelids should touch that. I'm gonna see the iris. And we were known for oversized eyes. And it was, what happens is, if you give somebody selenium, you could sit and watch 4 or 6 weeks where the eye shape and size would change. So I said, nobody's gonna believe me. I'm gonna have to take pictures. So I have before and after pictures as to how long it took for the person's eyes to pull back into their skull. And the pictures are time stamped. And this young lady who they used to call Froggy, it took 4 weeks for her eyes to pull back. So, okay, without magnesium, you don't absorb your vitamins and minerals properly. You could take a handful of them, but it's your absorption. So we start off with different illnesses. Our immune systems are supposed to protect us, but if you're not absorbing your vitamins from your food, there's no protection. So there's questions we ask now of our patients. Do your gums bleed when you brush your teeth? Some say yes, and some will say no, only if I floss. But what that ended up meaning was that you weren't absorbing sufficient vitamin C from your food, and you weren't absorbing, in some cases, enough folic acid. So what sounds like a casual thing, if you can't absorb your vitamin C, you need your vitamin C in order for your white blood cells to function properly, and also to keep your adrenal gland under control. Sounds simple, sounds weird, but that's what's happening. If you have a fungal infection, if you look around in the school, there'd be one child with ringworm, and you're trying to figure out, well, ringworm could be a disaster in a classroom. But that one child wasn't absorbing sufficient zinc. Zinc protects your immune system. And so if you're not absorbing sufficient zinc, then your white blood cells can't race off to fight the fungal infection or the whatever is trying to hurt you and harm you. I'm trying to bring this into context because presently in this environment, people are saying, well, take more D3, take more vitamin C, take more zinc. This will protect you from COVID. The truth is, it actually overwhelms you if you don't add sufficient magnesium. If there are a lot of people who they're surviving, but they have a lot of little things and they're not as healthy as you think. And so the people who are failing to survive COVID are the people who have these little things that they ignored. It had nothing to do with COVID in their minds or their immune systems. So the asthmatics don't have sufficient magnesium. The migraine sufferers don't have sufficient magnesium. The people with spasms, the people with seizures, they don't have sufficient magnesium. So they are not absorbing from their diet what is needed to balance them out. Our family's favorite contractor, my wife's cousin from Long Island, I put him on whatever little cocktail I have once you test positive. And he calls me in desperation and says, oh, this milk was so thick, and should I go to South Beach Clinic? That's not a bad idea. But I said, how much magnesium are you taking? And so we went from 1,000 milligrams every 8 hours to 1,000 every 4 hours. And I told him if he felt uncomfortable to go to South Beach Clinic for them to check his oxygen, I say, message me back in half an hour. Hour and a half goes by, no message. My wife is messaging me on the phone and asking me if I'm taking care of her cousin. And so I call him and he says, oh, no, I feel good. I'm going to South Beach right now. But the magnesium thins out the mucus. It shrinks the lining of the tissue of the lungs. The eosinophils, the white blood cells that are responsible for creating havoc in an asthmatic situation, the magnesium over time decreases them. There's a drug that does this as well. It's called prednisone. But this was God's, what God is. But that's my only understanding of it, because it wasn't in the textbooks, right? So you can take your D3, and Bahamians need D3 because melanin blocks the ultraviolet light from penetrating through the skin for us to make what the beneficial things that D3 gives us. So we have to take D3. But every time you add a vitamin, you have to be prepared for your body to be even more stressed if you didn't add sufficient magnesium before you took that extra vitamin. So every vitamin and mineral actually has some benefits. So a diabetic is basically a zinc deficiency disorder. Ringworm, recurrent yeast infections, the rashes underneath the breast. They zinc deficiencies, but just taking zinc without adding magnesium isn't supportive to your body, right? What other health concerns are there out there? Seizures. Magnesium stabilizes the electrical current of the brain, and magnesium is actually used in the hospital to treat seizures. Right? That's not widely expressed, but some people just develop seizures. They didn't hit their head. They didn't have a fever. They can't figure it out. The balance of your vitamins and minerals and nutrients is what decides what makes you healthy. The balance. We have an issue with MSG. And when you say MSG, everybody blames Chinese. But what happens is there are combination seasonings out there that suck magnesium out of your body, destabilizing the electrical current of the brain and the heart. And people now start having skipped heartbeats. They panic, they go for the EKG. The EKG is normal, but it's the complete seasoning. You can stabilize them, and then they go to their favorite fast food restaurant, or they have this complete seasoning in the cupboard. And the new wild thing is something called Sazon, and it has a little sticker on the front that says no MSG. Problem with that is that if you go online and research MSG, there are companies that went out of their way to disguise that they were using MSG's cousin. So disodium inosinate and guaranate is code words for MSG. So Sazon is sold widely popular because they say no MSG. But it's a little trick, and it causes pressure spikes. So a number of our stroke patients, their magnesium drops at a particular time, and the pressure spikes, right? Sinus, migraine, seizures, eczema, muscle spasms, all fall into the same category where people are doing well, go out, have a lovely meal, or cook something at home, and then can't figure out what happened. But it's just a magnesium drop, right? And so over the years, I started to try and understand what vitamin and mineral combinations could fix almost any illness. It was amazing. There's research out there. I'm talking tonight. I only have a certain amount of time, but the research, I'm just supposed to stimulate you to research. I'm not supposed to answer everything. So people who are having recurrent heart attacks, people who are having recurrent seizures or strokes, there's an answer out there. There are answers that people have been told, but then there are answers that are backed by science. So folic acid is important. Vitamin K2 is important. Vitamin C, definitely important. Zinc is important. We use an amino acid. Is something called N-acetylcysteine. Cysteine is an amino acid, and they modified it for cystic fibrosis. And cystic fibrosis is an illness where the person develops from childhood too much mucus. And so they don't live to a long age because of this excessive mucus. During the pandemic, people understood mucus was one of the biggest issues. At a certain point in COVID in certain people, the mucus blocked the oxygen from getting into the lungs. The lung tissue scarring was one problem. But the mucus, a lot of people talk about this excessive mucus. We use N-acetylcysteine because it also had properties to restore kidney function. So we had people who were dangling, supposed to go for dialysis, and we could pull them back with NAC. But with the pandemic, a lot of people started using NAC because of its mucus blocking properties. It was sold over the counter. And within the last 3 to 4 months, the US government blocked the sales of NAC. And you have to question, you didn't have a problem with it for the last 13, 15 years. Why you unblock it now? Why do you need a prescription for it? Right? And there's all of these questions that I have, but the patients have the same questions. Patients are intelligent enough to figure out stuff for themselves. The next argument is over ivermectin. Oh, that's a cow dewormer, that's a horse dewormer. That's not the history of ivermectin. And people who come out and stand up and boldly say ivermectin this and ivermectin the next, maybe a little bit more research, and they will realize that it was made to treat viruses in humans when it was first made. And so I don't want to be the one that says they want to keep us like sheep, and they want us to do it their way, and they only want us vaccinated. Vaccinations help, but if your body is not balanced and healthy, then you still can get sick. The vaccine is supposed to prevent you from getting super sick and dying. It doesn't block you from getting COVID. But if your immune system isn't healthy and balanced, the vaccine can't help you. Right? I'm not sure what my time is. I was supposed to speak for half an hour, then answer questions.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, your time is kind of running out. So I don't know if you want to maybe wrap up and then you can expand during the question and answer period. Does that sound good?
Sounds lovely. Okay, throw away the iodized salt. Everybody search your cupboard, search your family's cupboard. If you have iodized salt, throw it away. It wasn't designed for Bahamians, please. Get rid of the accent and the complete seasoning. I grew up on it, but I didn't realize it was a killer. No Sazon. Dairy and nuts suck magnesium out of your body as they pass through. Yes, nuts are supposed to be healthy, but nuts have a binder. A nut is a seed. A seed wants to grow into a tree. And so the nuts and seeds and grains have actually developed this thing that they annoy you. You don't know that they're annoying you, but they are sucking nutrients as they pass through. If you take a nut or seed and make a sprout, you let it grow, the binders have gone. And that sprout is now very healthy. Get yourself some selenium, feed it to your children, feed it to your friends and family. Decrease the amount of seafood until your body balances out. Tuna, sardine, fish, crab, crawfish, until that selenium kicks in, because the selenium and the iodine have a relationship. It's a U-shaped relationship. Too much selenium is bad, too much iodine is bad, but they balance each other. And I think I could stop there.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Strachan. All right, we're opening up the floors for questions now. If you have any questions, you can either raise your hand or you can type the question in the chat. I see that we have a question already in the chat, so I'm going to start with the chat. All right, so someone asked, what about allergies? Do you need elaboration on that, or are you good with that?
All allergies seem to stem from a thyroid gland. So if your thyroid becomes too sensitive, your immune system then gets hyperactive. So there are a certain amount of illnesses with excessive allergies, but it started off with the immune system waking up and looking at a thyroid gland and say, you look funny, you look strange. And that's when the immune system panics like that, the magnesium has dropped. And so a number of the allergies, you just build up the magnesium on the person. One magnesium a day is not going to do it. It only lasts 4 to 6 hours. So you have to get your magnesium, because you weren't born with low magnesium. You stopped absorbing your magnesium. And so the people who just have to be patient and keep adding their magnesium, they may get some diarrhea, but you take some Imodium. There's 6 or 7 different types of magnesium. Magnesium oxide is the most common, but people complain, oh, it carries me to the bathroom too much. So you can experiment with the different types of magnesium and find one that matches you. But over time, you should expect those allergies to decrease and decrease.
Okay, great. The next question is, how do you help your blood pressure?
So when we were young in medical school, they said that high blood pressure, 90% of the cases was what we call essential hypertension. We didn't know what that meant. I guess it was supposed to be a mystery. What happens is there are muscles that wrap around your blood vessel. So this is my blood vessel, and there are muscles that wrap around this. And when the magnesium gets too low, or the calcium from the dairy and the yogurt gets too high, there's this competition. Calcium is supposed to tighten, magnesium is supposed to relax. And so over time, you weren't born hypertensive. Over time, your magnesium is not winning the battle. So what we'd do is we'd sit somebody down in the office and we would give them a dose of magnesium and check their pressure in half an hour, just to show them, look what the magnesium can do. Unfortunately, if they had some KFC or they had some MSG, it takes like 48 hours for that to wear off, right? So we'd send them home. We start almost everybody on antihypertensives, or they came there with antihypertensives, and we just tell them to bear with us. Let's lift your magnesium levels back, and those muscles will relax. And it takes like 6 weeks. That's my answer.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to combine 2 questions. In light of the fact that you said get rid of your iodized salt, someone's asking what type of seasoning is better to use, and I want to combine that with what is your take on sea salt?
What we found, the research is saying that sea salt doesn't have as much iodine. What they went out and did was add potassium iodide to the salt. Morton's does it regularly. So sea salt didn't have this added iodine. So sea salt was actually a good suggestion, but Morton's salt does have a non-iodized salt. So you could just go in the shop and look for it. But sea salt is okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a paragraph here from EUB P6BY. They talked about selenium, and then they said, well, people only need a very small amount of selenium, plays a key role in their metabolism, and then they asked, why do people take selenium?
The tablet that's in the shop is 200 micrograms, right? And that's a small amount. It's not 200 milligrams, 200 micrograms. But if you are exposed to too much iodine, we all hit a wall. And even though you only need a small amount, if you have been if you've been over iodized for so many years, at some point, if you're starting to get sick, if you're starting to see issues, if you're having concerns, then it's probably your time to take selenium. And so it's a small dose. There's so many by itself. Selenium strengthens the heart muscle. Selenium is used in the liver to make something called glutathione. There are illnesses that we accept as just bad luck or genetics. And it turned out that a break from seafood and iodized salt, and you add the selenium until your body gets back to normal. I'll give an example. I have one of my wife's aunts. She couldn't tolerate putting iodine on her skin for a cut, right? The next auntie can't walk. If you're cooking fritters out on the park, she can't walk towards the fritters without getting blisters. And these are extreme, in my mind, examples of sensitivity to iodine. So one auntie volunteered to be the guinea pig. We put the iodine on her skin, and she came with her Panadol and her Benadryl, and she started her selenium. She had an instant reaction, 20, 30 minutes. So we did it again in a month, and she says, well, nothing, I don't feel nothing. And the next thing we know, auntie was 5 months pregnant. So now let's take a little bit of extra research. How auntie get 5 months pregnant? And then you had a story that auntie had 8 miscarriages from her first child. And earlier we were talking about the communication that if your thyroid doesn't work, your ovaries don't work. So auntie now has a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old. And the answer was her thyroid started working, her excessive allergy to iodine, and she has a baby. And so we had to go through anecdotal. There were few people that I could actually discuss it with. I had to sit down and try to figure out and ask questions of who would answer me. There are people who stop answering me, you know. I call doctors and they say, but the Cyprian again? Oh, Jesus. I can answer that. I called the lady from Great Britain. I messaged her, I emailed her, and she couldn't quite answer the questions that I was, the answer. She couldn't answer certain things that I saw, and I felt like I have a brain, you have a brain. Why did this work out like that? Go ahead, next question, please.
Okay, well, I'm going to answer this question for you. Vanessa had asked, what if you have hyponatremia, but he's not saying not to take salt, he's saying to eliminate the iodinized salt.
Right.
Okay. And for the audience, hyponatremia just means just sodium is low. Sodium is the main ingredient in your normal table salt. Jasmonia wants to know, you'd mentioned something about dairy. She wants to know if it means that you should stop using all dairy products.
If you have recurrent sinus problems, if you have migraines, if you have hypertension, if you have eczema, if you have an issue, the calcium, remember now, calcium is supposed to compete with magnesium. They're supposed to balance each other. And so when you see something showing up, then you have to sit with yourself and say, am I having too much calcium without sufficient magnesium? And is this the cause of my illness? Because we ain't supposed to be sick. You know that we're supposed to always be on a drug. There's something wrong. So that's my answer.
Okay, all right. Someone asked, why does folic acid make me feel sort of sick?
Maybe because you don't take enough magnesium before you take it. You can't take anything if, okay, I take 15 different supplements and vitamins. So I start off my day, 6:30, I am taking a dose of magnesium. If that's a morning I'm thinking I'm gonna drink coffee, I need to have enough magnesium in me or the coffee is gonna give me a stiff neck. And I'm gonna start having, my heart is gonna start skipping beats. I know I need to take zinc every couple of days, but if I take the zinc is gonna make me nauseous. And so there's a lot of different vitamins I take that I know will make me nauseous. I learned over time. And so I have to take a little extra magnesium before I take this or that or the next, rather than suffer. So it's just when you take certain vitamins, in order for your body to absorb that vitamin, it goes searching for magnesium. So depending on your genetics, it may take it from your neck and shoulders. It may take it from your heart. It is this thing where everybody has this different genetics and susceptibilities. And so there are people who get a headache because that's how their body works, where their body goes searching for magnesium to absorb that nutrient. And unfortunately, I have so many different little issues. I'd get pressure spikes from taking vitamins, but I just understand, well, you didn't take enough magnesium, just take extra.
Is there a benefit to the timing of eating nuts and when you take the magnesium?
Okay, so, you know, there's this thing out there about nuts are beneficial, nuts are good for you. My biggest problem was I'd get to work by 8 o'clock, 8:15, and I asking my staff to rub my neck. And my staff is being mean to me and say, but you just left home, why didn't you let your wife rub your neck? And I'd say, well, I'm the boss, and if I say rub my neck, you gotta rub my neck. So nuts are supposed to be healthy. I have a bag of almonds hidden in my drawer, because if I leave them on the counter, within 2 days, my staff will eat the whole bag of almonds. And I'd take some almonds, my neck is loose, and then I'd realize my neck tightens up. And so then you have to do your research and realize, yes, nuts are full of nutrients, but they have a binder. And when that binder kicks in, I would start popping magnesium to see if I could reverse this. It didn't work. I had to wait for the nuts to pass through my system in order for my neck to loosen up. There was no other solution. And what we would do is take people off of this, start the next, fill them with magnesium, and then tell them, experiment. You try it. And listen for their report to see if their bodies had returned to a certain degree of normal, and almonds didn't bother them anymore. So everybody has to examine their bodies and study their bodies and test their bodies. But if you know you have a problem, you start watching your diet and what you eat, and see if you eat or drink this, what happens in half an hour. It don't take long. Magnesium kicks in half an hour, bad food kicks in half an hour.
Okay, Jade, you can go ahead and unmute your mic and ask your question, please. Jade McQueen, can you unmute?
Yes, thank you. I was asking in relation to the fact that I take a lot, sorry, excuse me. I have a lot of vitamins that I take in terms of D3 high doses, like 5,000 IU. B complex I take. The B12 is 1,000 micrograms, and omega-3 is 2,000 milligrams. And so with that, I've been told to take that for the rest of my life by a doctor, as well as to take a multivitamin. I'm vegan, and so I'm concerned about whether or not I'm taking doses that are too high, and anything I might be lacking. I think specifically calcium and magnesium may be lacking.
Okay, so when I was learning a bit of nutrition, Dr. Gay said that you do 2,000 international units of D3 a day. If you get a cold or flu, you go up to 5,000, but you only do that for 3 days. Otherwise, you overwhelm your body with D3. So I'm sticking to that. I got that information 12, 13 years ago. The next thing is the international multivitamins have iodine. We already have too much iodine. And so I don't like multivitamins because they put iodine in it, they put a little bit of selenium, but we already have too much seafood and sea breeze around us. And as I said, you don't have to eat the seafood. I have patients who get sick if they walk. Actually, I used to get sick. If the wife was cooking lobster and I walk in the kitchen, I would get nauseous before I started taking selenium. But there are several different families who can't walk into a kitchen where seafood is being cooked. There are people who have lost their jobs as kitchen attendants because the seafood would break them out. Just the air around the kitchen. They couldn't walk past the kitchen anymore because the iodine in the air would break them out in hives. And so it just brought back home, each of us has a tolerance. If you see something going wrong, start to examine the different vitamins and minerals in your diet. So this lady from the kitchen moved to the laundry and still had issues because the table coverings, there would be lobster and shrimp on them. And so she'd break up until almost her elbows from this just the contact with the tablecloth. This year, I think she went hypothyroid. Her eyes started to bulge. She swore that she wasn't eating seafood. She swore that she ain't eat seafood in so long, but we did the blood test. Her eyes are bulging. She had iodine from somewhere. And as simple as a meal from KFC, they use iodized salt. As simple as that sound, could be a trigger and throw you over the top. So our eyes have sunken back. She's happy and comfortable again. And then the patients always tell the doctor everything. But if you know it wrong, you know it wrong. Eh?
Okay, all right, I'm going to try to bundle these questions in the interest of time. So what supplements can you recommend for building up your white blood cells, and what supplements are good for increasing energy?
Okay, the number one energy supplement is magnesium. If I feel like I'm dropping sleep in the middle of the day, I used to have to take a nap from the age of 40 something. I had to take a nap every day. And eventually over time, I realized that either lunch or something caused my magnesium to drop. Without magnesium, you don't absorb anything else. But if I am droopy and sleepy, I pop a magnesium or two and wait half an hour. If I feel like I don't want to go to work, you wake up in the morning and you say, I ain't going to work today. This ain't gonna be a good day. It turns out that was a magnesium deficiency. Your mood, magnesium affects your mood, your outlook on your future, right? In terms of immune system, the most dominant things may be D3, zinc, and vitamin C. And Dr. Gay used to say, you increase in your vitamin C by 500 milligrams until you get diarrhea or nausea. So he used to be up to 15,000 vitamin C, break it down to 3 times a day. And with this COVID environment, there's a lot of anxiety. So there's too much cortisol. And so there's people having panic attacks because they're scared to go to work. And so increasing your vitamin C, you take it once a day, it only lasts 4 to 6 hours. So 3 times a day. If you want to start with 5. Right? So vitamin C improves the function of your white blood cells. Zinc improves the function of your white blood cells. So as simple as vitamin C, D3, and zinc. Your white blood cells have to swim over to the offending bacteria or virus, and then they have to be able to engulf. And what they have found with research over time is that if you didn't have sufficient nutrients, the white blood cell could show up, but it can't grab the particular offender and kill it. And these are details, but they're important. And I caution people against too much zinc. There are people taking 50 and 75 milligrams of zinc. If I do that, I wouldn't be able to go to work. It'd make me feel so bad. So I don't know how people functioning, but everybody trying, everybody desperate, everybody anxious. And so balance is the key. If you take your vitamins, you feel bad in half an hour, take some extra magnesium, please.
Okay, thank you. Which magnesium do you recommend? Can men and women take magnesium, selenium? Is there a risk of overdosing on them? And how much magnesium do you recommend daily?
Well, the only way you can overdose on magnesium is if the doctor sets up an IV drip of magnesium and runs it in too fast. If you're just taking it by mouth, then you can't overdose unless you have kidney failure. Magnesium, we give little children from the age of 8 or 9, 500 milligrams, 2-3 times a day. So a grown adult needs 1,000 milligrams, 2-3 times a day at the minimum. They may need more depending on their diet, because everybody's eat bad every couple of days. I love KFC. I know that my heart can skip beats the day after. I love pizza. Heart can skip beat, pressure can be up. So I ain't saying be perfect. I say be good. And monitor yourself. If you feel funny, the pressure going up the next day, if the migraine kicking in, if the sinus kicking in, then you take a little extra magnesium. But I'm giving the basics for people to sit down and study themselves and say, I took this, half an hour later, I felt like this, and then something went wrong 4 to 6 hours later. So I don't want to give a full prescription. By the way, we found out that magnesium blocked bedwetting. As strange as that sounded, we had a woman come in with 3 bedwetters. And she put the children on magnesium. Of course, I Googled it because I didn't know what the answer was, right? And they stopped wetting their bed. I didn't even see the scientific explanation as to why that helped.
Okay. Does taking supplements make you feel bloated or constipated? And if so, what can be done to remedy that?
It depends on which supplements. So in some countries, if they got 100,000 cases of some waterborne diarrhea, they'd give people a little extra zinc, and zinc would tighten the bowels. In my own personal history, I only went to the bathroom every 3 days. And on the 3rd day, I would find the highest fiber bread. I would drink extra water. I'd take my X-Lax, and then I'd go to the bathroom that day. And then it'll start over. And once I found magnesium, I started going to the bathroom 3 times a day. And before that, people would say, oh, everybody have different bowels. No, you're supposed to go 3 times a day. You know, if you go in once every 2 or 3 days, or once a day, then you don't have sufficient magnesium. I use magnesium oxide. There's magnesium glycinate, magnesium taurate, magnesium citrate. There's 5 or 6 different ones. And I encourage everybody to experiment with it, because that's what I did. Magnesium malonate. I experimented with as many different varieties. And I ended up coming right back to magnesium oxide, even though they say that is one of the most poorly absorbed magnesium. When we tried to take people off magnesium oxide because they were going to the bathroom too much, we say, okay, try this. It's up to you. They'd come back and say, well, I'm getting headaches and my pressure going up. I say, but we just offered you that. We didn't force you to take the alternative. They say, well, put me back on the other one then. And so people would end up with combinations of different types of magnesium that suited their needs.
Okay, thank you. All right, the question from Solomon's iPad has been answered by Patty, so I'm going to skip over that. Okay, I think this is going to be the last question we can ask. My daughter had a thyroid gland deactivated at 10 years old and now takes Synthroid. Is that medically correct, is what she's asking.
It is, but 15 years ago, what happens is the history of the country We didn't have an endocrinologist. This is somebody who specializes in the glands and balances the glands. The people that managed thyroids back in the day were the ear, nose, and throat surgeons. And a surgeon loves to cut. And so when I started to understand nutrition a little better, I called an ear, nose, and throat surgeon, and I asked him, what's the role of selenium in thyroid health? And he says, I don't know nothing but selenium. I just cut them out. And I said, okay, thank you. And I called him back again 2 or 3 weeks later, and he didn't answer my call. And so I had to ask our endocrinologist. He didn't know the answer at that time either, but he called New York. He called his friends in New York, and they said, that's the new worldwide issue, is insufficient selenium. And then he retired and left the country. Before he retired, he put all of his thyroid patients on selenium. How I know is because they started coming to me to ask me what my thoughts were. Because somebody else wanted to take them off of selenium. But the stuff I am saying tonight, I am comfortable with people Googling what I say and coming back at me and saying, well, Strong, you was off. Because I didn't Google it, I don't know, so many times to make sure that if I did a public presentation, that I was on point. But I getting older. I don't know when last I Googled some of these things. So if somebody Googled something, y'all can let them find me and question me. Pick my brain. That's fine. I saw something about weight loss just now.
Okay, do you want some more questions? Because there were actually some more questions ahead of that one.
I don't have anything to do with this.
Okay, we'll proceed. All right, so from Georgina, it says, from what I understand from your presentation, from what I understand from your presentation, the vaccine is counterproductive if there's an imbalance in the mineral vitamin concentration in the body. Why then is there not more education about the role of these essential micronutrients in the fight against COVID? It seems that we should be promoting healthy diets far more than vaccination.
I don't want to say don't get your vaccine. If you are comfortable getting the vaccine, get your vaccine. But I also say, keep your body healthy. Don't get your vaccine and then stop eating healthy and stop taking your vitamins, because the vaccine is supposed to stop you from dying of COVID. But if you don't have a healthy body and you have some underlying condition, like you didn't know you had diabetes, you didn't know you had hypertension, you was ignoring it. If you have eczema, if you have some little thing that you're fighting with, and you take your vaccine, your body still ain't good enough and may not be able to fight off COVID. I'm saying that the vaccine isn't the end answer, but I'm not saying don't take the vaccine. If you are comfortable taking the vaccine, you go right ahead and take your vaccine. But I need you to protect yourself, because a lot of us don't actually know what little things bother us. So I still get eczema right here. It ain't covering my body. When I was a child, it was all everywhere. But some KFC and some pizza, and I can be scratching the middle of my forehead. So everybody has a little something going on. I just say protect yourself. Study, learn, take care of the small details. Because all the vaccinated people are not, it's not true 100% that they're not getting sick and that they're not going in hospital. I had a fully vaccinated friend and he couldn't get into South Beach Clinic. He said, I'm going home. And so he's not monitored and he's not recorded because only PCRs are recorded. Antigen tests are not recorded. So what we're seeing is 1/3 of the actual true number of COVID in the country. And if they're not monitored, a lot of them are mingling because there's nobody policing them to say, you need to stay home, right? And I monitored him every day. The childhood friend. And I call him every day. I say, how you doing? Okay. All right. Call him the next day. Hey, what's going on? All right. And I realized that I would make a sentence with 25 words, and he kept answering me in 3 words, fully vaccinated. And I said, all right, I tired of you. I would need to talk to your wife. So the wife comes on the phone, and I say, how are you doing? She said, he's dying slowly every day. And so then we go into emergency mode, and I got a row with him. I got to fight with him. She got a row and fight. He ends up in hospital on oxygen for 14 days. Some good days, some bad days, but he survives. But whenever I tell this story, people say it's because he had the vaccine. And I say, no, he survived because I harassed him. I was his contact tracing. I followed him up. So that's just a little story to say vaccines work for some people, but sometimes, there's other factors that keep you alive, keep the vaccinated alive.
Okay, all right, great. Someone wants to know if you test for magnesium deficiency.
Okay, what the problem is that when we test for deficiencies, we test the serum. So you do sodium, you could do chloride, you could do potassium in the serum. Magnesium doesn't live in the serum. And so what we did is magnesium lives in the red blood cells and in the bones. And so we researched the simple signs of magnesium deficiency. So if you tie it around your neck and shoulders, we start to speculate. If you don't stool every day, you start to speculate. If you have eczema, if you have asthma, if you have migraines, instead of doing the special test for magnesium, and they said by the time your magnesium shows up low in your serum, you was off so bad for like 6 months. And so we stopped testing because everybody can't afford every test you want to do to begin with. And so you have to do clinical, you have to touch people, you have to ask them questions, you have to do things that does not involve a test. But the blood test for magnesium, by the time that gets low, you'd have been off the chart for a little while.
Right, and do you recommend taking magnesium on an empty stomach?
I do all the time. I eat once a day because I'm old and not as active as I used to be. And so I take magnesium throughout the day on an empty stomach.
And should zinc be taken daily?
What I recommend for people to do is be good for 6 weeks. And that will change your life. And then you could be bad and take it every 2 or 3 days after that. But for that first 6 weeks, that 6 weeks seems critical. Somebody told me it was biblical that in 40 days, things changed in the Bible. A sprained ankle, a broken foot is a 42-day, 6-week treatment plan. And so we did things in 6 weeks. We started using that as our basic formula. And then people could be lazy and not be as consistent as they want or they should.
How long does it take to correct a magnesium deficiency?
It probably takes up to 6 weeks, depending on how good or bad you can be during that time. Because people start off good, and then somebody will bring them some food, or they go by the church. I don't eat from the church no more. And just sit there and drink some coffee. But they put complete seasoning and everything. Everybody put in complete seasoning. But if you are good with your diet, then it probably 6 weeks will restore you to normal pressure, relieve the seizures and the migraines and whatever, and then you could be bad.
Okay. Should I try magnesium for, this is a question. Should I try magnesium for a month and monitor my pressure? If it is controlled, do you recommend stop taking the pressure tablets?
I need you to be monitored. I don't want anybody doing it by themselves. All our patients, we keep monitoring them. What happens is magnesium works in half an hour like a drug. So if you take your magnesium in half an hour, you check your pressure, you should be able to see a change. The problem is for that change to stick and stay would probably take 6 weeks.
Should magnesium and selenium be taken together?
It doesn't matter. They don't compete. They don't. Some people say that the selenium helps with the absorption of magnesium.
Okay, and then does the question that you saw, does magnesium assist with weight loss?
No, my staff believes that. They feel like they could eat bad and just take a handful of magnesium and go to the bathroom. What happens is there are a lot of, especially women, that are slim and healthy, and then they have that first or second child, and it's like a time bomb went off. The child steals the mother's selenium. She could get her iodine back. She don't get her selenium back because she's not taking a selenium supplement. The thyroid then slows down. When the thyroid slows down, the adrenal gland kicks in. The adrenal gland then tries to make you eat. The adrenal gland will now choose your foods for you. You, in the back of your mind, may say, this ain't good for me. And your adrenal gland say, do what I say. And because the adrenal gland is blocking your serotonin, serotonin is what makes us feel full. So your adrenal gland wins the battle, and people can show you pictures of them in their high school clothes and early days until they have that first or second or third child. So the antidote is the selenium, but now you have to take a serotonin supplement, 5-HTP, or you take Prozac, or you take Paxil, and then the craving for starch and sugar. This craving for starch and sugar is incredible. You could explain all the science to a diabetic and tell them if you stop starch and sugar, you won't be a diabetic anymore. And their adrenal gland is fighting them, stanching with them to put on this to eat the wrong thing. So the selenium is the beginning of the antidote. And then you have to take something like 5-hydroxytryptophan, or get your doctor to write you some fluoxetine or Prozac or some Paxil. I had issues from a child, and I still have issues. I still have issues with controlling my appetite.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't see any more questions in the chat. I don't see any hands raised. If anybody feel that their question was inadequately answered or they wanted to add to that, or anybody have any other questions, then feel free to unmute your mic and speak now. Okay, I see one more question just popped up from SM T5110. What should one take if they have had radioactive iodine for some years ago and all the thyroid levels are normal except the TSH levels? The TSH level is very high. The person is already on Synthroid.
They need to adjust their dosage of Synthroid.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
They don't have sufficient. By the way, Synthroid is T4. So there are two thyroid hormones, T4 and T3. And the only way in our bodies we convert T4 to T3 is with selenium. And so it's different debates and discussions as to which one is better, T4 or T3. But Synthroid is only T4, and selenium converts T4 to T3.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions. I don't see any more hands raised. We do have some praises for you for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
And I do thank you. Oh, sorry, there is one more question. Go ahead, Ken. Ken, you may unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay.
What are the, yes, good night. What are the preferred seasonings to use?
I prefer that people use individual seasonings like back in the day. So if you have your salt, your black pepper, you have your lime, you have your thyme, you have your garlic powder or fresh garlic. I prefer people go back to the old days and just do the individual stuff.
Okay. Do you have a site where persons could probably go on and check out the rest of the information?
I was supposed to have a site, but I get old and I don't monitor it properly. So unless I can have
Okay, all right. Lily Monty had a hand up first, so EUB P6BY, unless you're going to speak to the site issue, I'm going to ask Lily Monty to go ahead and speak.
Hi, Lily.
Hello, thank you. Hello, Dr. Strachan. Thank you very much. I have two questions. Number one, how many selenium should one take within the course of a day? And as you said, you take a handful of magnesium. Is that 2, 3, or 4?
Depending on the day, I will take 2 to 3 every 4 hours. Because if it ain't the coffee, then I get a sip of scotch or something like that. And all of that affects the magnesium levels. So I let my body tell me, right? Lily is my daddy's niece, by the way.
Oh, okay. Hi, Lily.
And we give selenium based on weight. I take, depending on how much seafood I eat, that decides how much selenium I take, how much KFC or whatever. So I normally take 1 a day, but every so often I take 2. I saw the name Cecilia come up on the screen. I have a sister named Cecilia. I don't know if that was her.
There are a number of your family members on this chat, Dr. Strachan, and they're listening to you. And so I say thank you very much for those answers.
Thank you, guys. You're welcome.
Okay, great. EUP6BY, did you still have a question? Do you still want to say something? Go ahead.
I had a question that wasn't answered about the serotonin being associated with the happy feeling.
Right.
I've always thought that, okay, the serotonin created the happy feelings. And so personally, I take an antidepressant so that I can have the happy feelings because I'm depleted of the happy feelings.
So the
happy hormone.
What happens is we're supposed to make our serotonin, right? And so you give the body the ingredients to make the serotonin. The drugs are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So they recycle your serotonin. So early on, some of my teachers tried to encourage me to encourage more people to make their own serotonin with the 5-hydroxytryptophan. And so the 5-HTP has some other little vitamins in it because the body needed these other ingredients to actually make serotonin. So it'll be a little B vitamin, a little C vitamin. But there are doctors who believe that if you increase your vitamin C levels, you suppress your cortisol, which is the cortisol is suppressing your serotonin. And so during the pandemic, I have gone from taking the 500 milligrams to taking 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C. for my own benefit, because it's stressful. This pandemic thing is stressful. And if you don't have sufficient vitamin C, then your immune system drops. So people may have to tweak and adjust their vitamin C, because during times of stress, they're not absorbing sufficient vitamin C.
Mm.
Okay, all right, so final call for questions if Dr. Strachan does not mind. People seem to be enjoying the discussion. Going once?
Absolutely.
Okay, I see a hand. Go ahead. Who's raising their hands? Oh, no, I don't see a hand. Okay. All righty, so, oh, that's Carla. Go ahead, Carla.
Yes, I wanted to know how many units of magnesium does the doctor take daily? I mean, I heard him say 1, 2, or 3 tablets or something like that, but how much units do he take daily?
Magnesium, I take milligrams.
I mean, milligram, okay.
So I
How
take,
many?
I could take 1,000 every 4 hours, depending on what I'm going through. I see on the chat there people who are talking about what are the hormones of satiety. So leptin is in the discussion. I agree with that. Ghrelin is in the discussion, but all of them are still related and overlap with the serotonin. And so I've heard presentations, and then you go back and you Google, and you realize there's a great overlap of these hormones or chemicals or brain chemicals. So ghrelin is involved, leptin is involved. I'm agreeing. I don't disagree with anybody. I don't disagree. You know, there's a time as a young doctor, I heard a patient asked Dr. Ronnie Knowles, I would have been 2 years out of medical school. He said, what's your thoughts? Patient said, what's your thoughts on bush medicine? And he said, I can't say that they don't work. But I can only say that I don't know how many leaves of a particular tree to use to get the same result. And I understood that. And in the past, I may have felt like, well, I was the authority because I'm the doctor. And when somebody came and said this worked, I said, well, I'm happy. You may have taught me something that I could go back and share with somebody else, because apparently nobody has the end all answer as to what is the perfect cure. So I encourage research. I encourage free thought and discussion. I want everybody to go back and Google everything they could think of.
All right, so it's 9:03. Thank you so much, Dr. Strachan. As I said to you when we first spoke, you know, we're promoting health in all its aspects, especially in this pandemic. So like I spoke to you, we promote the vaccine, but it's also important for people to take care of their bodies at the micronutrient level and at the macronutrient level. So thank you so much. We've provided information here that people obviously haven't been getting anywhere else. So we thank you so much for your contribution, and your helping us to survive and come out healthy during this pandemic.
Thank you for having me. It was quite a pleasure.
All right.
Absolutely. We're gonna have maybe perhaps every quarter of some updated information that can help us, because I truly enjoyed your meeting, and I appreciate it so much. It's very informative, and I learned a lot, and taught me a lot in order to move forward with a better health. Are we going to have these again?
So actually, Pathway to a Healthier You is done every month here. We invite different speakers to attack health issues that are facing the Bahamas particularly. It's the last Thursday of every month. So we've been having this for some time. And we look forward to having you join us next week. And of course, we'll be happy to have Dr. Strachan back again if he's willing to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And put you on the spot, Dr. Strachan, I'm sorry.
Y'all might have suck out everything on my brains already.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
you're gonna trick your brain and give us information that's really necessary because it's a really tough
I think
season.
there's always something. I think I don't ever cover everything I want.
Which is fine.
I get uncomfortable talking so long because sometimes I feel, you know, I don't know. I have a certain sensitivity about talking too much. I prefer the
Oh,
questions.
well, you share what you love and you love what you share and that's important. It's at the end of the day, it's up to the individual to, like you said, do your research and have questions and if you can provide the answers, that's what's important or the direction, that's what's important.
Okay, all right. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Strachan. I'm going to turn this back over to dear Brother Dean.
All right. Elder Kevin Beneby, are you still on with us?
Still here.
Elder Kevin Beneby?
Hey, I'm still here.
Oh, yes, yes. So would you be so kind and close us out with a word of prayer, please?
Sure. I appreciated that presentation, Doc. Good job. Appreciate your
Welcome. Thank you.
I very, very much appreciate it. Let's go ahead and pray. Oh God, the God of the heavens and the earth, you have worked in a wonderful way in creating the human body with its various systems. Indeed, it's a chemistry lab in one sense, all sorts of elements working together in balance to keep us up and well and functioning well. Thank you for Dr. Strachan. Pray that you may help him, oh God, with his challenges. And I pray that you may continue to bless him as he continues to be a source of blessings to others. Oh God, I pray that you may continue to bless the organizers of Pathway to a Healthier You. Bless those who are on the platform now with their various issues. Oh God, I pray that all of us may recognize your goodness, your sustaining power in our lives. And I pray that all of us may see the importance of drawing nearer to you, the God who ultimately sustains and keeps and blesses. In Christ's name I do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Doc. And good night to everybody. You can say
Welcome.
goodbye as please.
Thanks for having me.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for an awesome presentation.
Yes, it was.
Welcome.
Good night, all.
Good night. Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Good night, Dr.
Strachan.
Strachan. Excellent presentation.
Hi, how are you? You're welcome.
Good night, Dr. Strachan. Excellent presentation. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Dr. Strachan. Have a
Good night.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Doc, you saw Donna?
Good night. Good night.
Good night, Dr. Strachan. This is Shireen.
Good
Good
night.
night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Dr. Strachan. It was very enlightening. Gave us an alternative, although you didn't quite say that. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am.
The